We're live. Let's see here. Is it the microphone on? Is it a I'm concerned that microphone seems like it's not picking up very well. Is the level up high enough? It is.
I mean, clearly we have audio, so.
I'm nervous about that. Nope. All right, that's good.
Yeah, I think we're fine.
Okay.
Clearly, we test things before we start.
I did test it.
I know you did. I'm just making fun of ourselves, yes. Both of us, me, myself included.
Excellent. Previously on That's the Show, Greta Thunberg brought some young justice to the United States, fighting against corporations' hold on politicians via blood and treasure. The chef showed her that Avengers can be human too. As Greta left the mic, she mumbled, "My life is murder," which everyone agreed was not a good omen.
Yep. Hello, welcome to That's the Show. Oh, there's a theme song.
There's a theme song. One of these days, I'll get more slick at playing the theme song after I do my spiel.
Not necessary.
Not necessarily.
We run a pretty low expectations show here.
Do we? What is this show, Rachel?
It's called That's the Show.
Is it?
And it's a podcast where the two of us just talk shit about TV.
Yeah, that's very accurate.
Is really what it is. And today we have some good stuff in here and some neutral things in here.
And some very bad things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We really run the whole gamut today.
Absolutely.
My name, if you have not been watching or listening in to this show before, is Rachel. I go by the Junie Bird online. I'm 28 now. Which is new because my birthday was a few weeks ago. And I am very white, and that is she, her pronouns. There we go. I knew I was missing something.
My name is Paul Rothton. I used to be a spy until I got a burn notice. When you're burned, you got nothing. No cash, no credit, no job history. You're stuck in whatever city they decide to dump you in. You do whatever work comes your way. You rely on anyone who's still talking to you. Bottom line, as long as you're burned, you're not going anywhere. And I'm 44 and I use he, him pronouns.
I feel like none of that was accurate, but okay.
You can't prove it. I'm a spy.
Great. Okay. Paul, what's new in your life?
Well, it's the same thing that's new in every Los Angelino's life right now, is that it's turning into autumn, and amazingly, it's starting to be less hot. A little bit.
Is it though?
A little bit.
No.
Like now when I go into the ocean, I actually do notice that it's kind of cold. So I might have to do other things besides go out swimming every night after work.
It's true. I don't go into the ocean, so I don't notice that.
I think I'm going to start swapping out like night walks / hikes or like bike rides instead of ocean swims because I can't do exercise at home. I have to go outside of the house to do my exercise. Apparently, I've discovered this about myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and last night I was actually in your neck of the woods. I went to Crimsey's vegan Cajun restaurant again.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I went there.
I saw an Instagram from that. And I said,
yes.
"Oh, hey, I can walk there."
You can. And I was there with an internet friend of mine, Evie Did It from the internet. I'd known that Eva lives in Los Angeles for like 3 years, and we'd never met. We just occasionally like interact on Twitter and stuff.
That's how a lot of internet friendships go.
Yeah, especially in Los Angeles. So we finally had an opportunity when we both had time in our schedule to meet up. She was interested in trying out new vegan food. She'd never been to Crimsey's. It all lined up.
Yes.
It was all nice. And so I continued my ongoing quest of meeting my internet friends face to face.
Yeah. I feel like that needs to have like the little like cheer sound effect.
The cheer sound effect from God. Yes. I should get a sound effect app for my phone.
Totally should. Oh my God, that would be so fun.
I wonder if I have one.
Anyway,
what's new in your life?
While you look for that,
Yes.
I'm going to say what's new in my life, which is that I am a bit of a. I'm debating here. You can decide what is the better term to use in this instance.
Okay.
I have a Disneyland pass.
Nice.
I am a pass holder.
Excellent.
Should we go with spoiled brat or pass hole?
I like pass hole.
Right. Okay.
Because you're a little bit. I mean, you're 28 now. You're a little old for you to be a brat.
Well, it was a Christmas present.
You're very convincing, but I still like pass hole. I like that better.
Yeah, pass hole is very fun. I'm back at Disneyland.
Excellent.
I'm back on my bullshit. I went on Monday with not with anyone. I went by myself and I met people at Disneyland.
Like people you already knew?
No.
Brand new people.
Did not know these people. I happened to do a conversation with a woman as we were getting off Indiana Jones. Then we met up with her fiance and we're like, oh, you want to go on this ride? And I'm just like, do. This is my literal dream come true.
Oh, that's so nice.
So yeah, I don't know if we did exchange numbers. I'm like, I don't know if I should even be saying this on the internet, but who knows what's going to happen. But that it was a nice thing.
That's
it was
cool.
A cool thing. It was really cool.
I feel like I've had a similar experience, not at Disney proper, but at downtown Disney. I was waiting in line for the security checkpoint to get through, and some people were just chatting, and I chatted with them about Disney, Pixar stuff, and then we ended up going to a restaurant together.
Right. I mean, I do that kind of stuff all I'm constantly just I took the. You remember when they first announced on Pottermore that they were doing the American Wizarding Schools and you could be sorted for the American Wizarding Schools?
Yes.
I was sorted into Thunderbird, I think, and I was reading through the description and I'm just oh, I don't know. That's fine. And then my friend who I was taking the quiz with, I'm just you literally just go up to people and make new friends wherever you are. And I'm just is that true? I don't know. And then the next day I was on an airplane. What's happening?
I got a sound effects app for my iPad.
The next day I was on an airplane and gave my phone number to the person who was sitting next to me because we'd been chatting for a while. And I'm just oh, okay, yeah, that's real. Cool.
That's amazing. Is that a Thunder whatever?
I think that was
trade.
I think that was makes friends easily or something like that was a Thunderbirds trait. Yeah.
I see. Is this the sound effect we want? Like that?
Not quite, but it works.
All right, I'll have to go through all these sound effects for future podcasting purposes.
I'm excited for this, for the possibilities that this allows. We didn't talk about who's going to go first, but I think I should go first.
Go for it. All right. So yes, you can go first. Absolutely.
Okay.
I was just going to tell people who are listening or tuning in for the first time that we begin our podcast proper with our hot takes on things having to do with TV shows, TV specials, TV news, the TV industry.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing now. And Rachel, you should go first.
Okay. Because I'm going to talk about the Emmys.
All right. That covers everything.
Which just happened on Sunday. And I feel now that the Emmys have happened, all the TV premieres are happening. So I'm going to have a lot to talk about next week. But I haven't got a chance to watch any of the stuff that's just premiered in the last couple of days. And a lot of it is premiering tonight or in the next few days. So that's very exciting, to be continued. And the other weird thing about the Emmys is that I wasn't able to watch them.
You were not?
No.
Why not?
I was working.
Oh.
I forgot to try and get time off. And I was just working that night and I I didn't think to record it. I didn't I don't know. I just felt super disconnected from everything that was happening. Also, the Emmys YouTube channel does not immediately upload speeches.
Yeah, didn't I have like 2 speeches and everything else was just clips?
Yeah, it's all clips of like the people announcing who the nominees are and then who won, and then it just cuts right there. It like doesn't give you the speech, and I'm just like, I'm here for the speech. Why are you doing this to me?
That's weird.
So I have almost no like anything to say about anything. I tried looking some things up, and I'm just like, I don't know really how the fact that they didn't have a host this year went. Like, I heard there was something with Homer Simpson, and then some like VR thing, and then that went away, and then there was like apparently Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Kimmel were making like jokes about it.
What?
I don't know. I didn't watch them. This is very strange for me because usually I'm so on top of the Emmys. It's like my favorite thing.
Yeah, I didn't bother watching the Emmys because I figured that you would just fill me in on the Emmys.
I know. I did look. So what I did manage to do was take a pretty good look at the list of winners.
Okay.
And I will say that show that you talked about last episode, Fleabag, won a lot of things.
Good.
They won best comedy series.
Excellent.
Which was kind of like a steal. Like everybody thought Marvelous Mrs. Maisel was going to win because they won last year. And it was marvelous. And they did win a few things. They won best supporting actress, best supporting actor. But Phoebe Waller-Bridge won for best lead actress. I don't remember who won best lead actor, but they also won for best comedy series, which is fantastic.
Amazing.
The other couple things I'll say, Game of Thrones won a lot of things.
I mean, why bother? It's off the air now. Who cares?
Because it is their last run at trying to win all the things. They did win best drama series.
Fine.
And they will never darken our doorframe again.
Unless they get that spin-off that they
I don't watch Game of Thrones, so like I can't say like I don't want to say bad things about it because I don't watch it, but also I'm kind of glad it's over.
Yes.
Like I'm tired of everyone being obsessed with Game of Thrones.
I've only watched like a few episodes from the very beginning of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And while I very quickly came to appreciate Arya, played by Maisie Williams, and Tyrion, I didn't like them enough to keep on watching a show full of like murder, intrigue, and rape. Even the dragons aren't enough to get me into a rape show. I'm not into it. Right.
There's a lot of actors and actresses in Game of Thrones that I really love, and like I appreciate a lot of their other work.
Natalie Dormer's in there, I think.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I want them to do well, but like, sorry, not really gonna watch Game of Thrones. Yeah. Not for me. But it's good to know your limits.
Yes. I'm actually going to talk about my limits with regards to another show later on in this episode.
To be continued.
It's all connected.
And then the other thing I'll say is that there were a lot of streaming service shows in general.
Oh, nice.
That were nominated, but also that won. Like Fleabag is Hulu.
Yeah. Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime. Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is Amazon Prime. Like I think Best Limited Series. I don't know if Best Limited Series went to The Act, which was a Hulu miniseries. But definitely Best Miniseries Actress went to Patricia Arquette for The Act.
Oh,
and I heard that her speech was wonderful. I can't watch it. That's really all I've got for you because I feel woefully behind. And here we are. So.
I think maybe the Emmys are on Hulu. Have you checked?
So when I tried to click that,
does it go? You have to.
It locked me out.
Or something?
but potentially it locked me out because I was trying to click to like watch it the same day or the next day. So like maybe it just needed to like time, and then now it will let me watch it. So that looks like it's doing the thing, and I'm gonna have to go home and watch it now, I guess.
Yep, there you go.
Cool.
2 hours and 9 minutes worth of Emmys on Hulu.
Wow.
Thank goodness for Hulu.
Yeah. That it must have just like not let me watch it immediately.
That makes sense. They do have that time delay thing on Hulu and other streaming services.
So, well, that's fine.
Sure. Is that everything you had to say about the Emmys?
I think that is everything I have to say about the Emmys, but like now that I might just go home and watch it, I may have more things to say about it next week.
Follow up next episode.
And probably not much time to say it, considering how many new shows I'm probably going to be watching.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's go.
I want to go right into one of those shows where I'm testing my limits for what I'm willing to watch.
Okay.
So there's this, as longtime listeners, recent viewers of this podcast may know, I really enjoy superhero shows and movies. I watch all of them pretty much, but I don't like, sexual assault, gratuitous violence and gore, lots of misogyny. I don't like those things, and I kind of wish that they would not encroach upon superhero shows. Because that's, I want superhero shows to be an escape from reality, not just super reality.
I like it.
Yeah. But there was a show that was released on Amazon Prime called The Boys. And the advertising, the initial advertising was not very illustrative, because it just showed like a bunch of humans in like trench coats staring at the camera, and then The Boys, as if you know what that is. I think they were hoping that people who read the comic book would know and would just jump on board and be excited about it. But people who did not read the comic book, like me, just saw a bunch of guys staring at the camera. That's the ad? Who cares?
Side note, So many ads right now are so cryptic, and I have no idea what half the new shows are.
It's like they're missing the point of advertising. The point of advertising is to tell people what they should be excited about enough.
Right.
And then they go in and investigate the rest of it. If it doesn't say anything, like there's going to be a show coming out this fall where I've actually seen some commercials, and the commercials show me a little bit of information, but the print ads and the billboard ads for Emergence don't tell me anything. It's just the word nothing. Emergence and like a woman and a girl. So?
Right.
Why would I care about this?
Like knowing a little bit about the show, some of the ads then make sense.
Yeah.
Like Carol's second act, for example.
Yes, Patricia Heaton's upcoming show.
It has, when you just see the ads for it, it's just like Patricia Heaton in a doctor's coat, and I'm just like, I don't know what's happening here. Like, she's a doctor, great. Once you watch an ad for it, it's just like, oh, okay, like I understand why this is interesting now. But pretty much the ads are just like, Patricia Heaton is a doctor now.
Yeah, and I saw those ads and I don't care in the slightest.
Right.
And also the fact that she's a doctor doesn't tie in thematically with the title, Patricia's Second Act. Like if she were like dressed up in Shakespearean gear, then that would make sense. Oh, she's like decided to leave her life as a housewife and become a Shakespearean actor on a play. That makes sense. It's her second act. But
right. Yeah, they need a better, I don't know if they have a tagline attached to any of those ads or if they're just banking on like face star power to get people to tune in, but they need a better tagline because I don't remember it.
Yeah, it's a shame. So anyway, I saw ads for The Boys, and for a long time I ignored it because, again, just a bunch of guys in trench coats staring at the camera. What do I care about white guys? I don't care. But then I discovered that it was actually about a superhero show, and these humans in trench coats staring at the camera are the humans who are fighting against superheroes who have regular human failings, like being tremendous assholes. Like the superheroes are some of the worst people.
I thought you said feelings for a second, and I'm just like, yay,
failings.
Feelings.
No, not feelings. Failings.
Failings.
Yeah.
Continue.
I gave this show a shot. But I'm going to give you content warnings right now. In the very first episode, there is sexual assault from a male superhero to a female superhero. Like in the very first episode, that happens. And there are consequences way down the road later on in the show, but immediately there's no consequences. It just makes you feel disgusting. How does this make me want to keep watching the show? It does not. It makes you want to turn off the show is what it does. And then there's also like some horrible, like gory body violence. Like everybody knows what the character The Flash is. The Flash is like the fastest man on earth. There's an analogous superhero in this show, The Boys, who has exactly the same powers as the Flash. And the very first episode, he runs through a human woman. Yes. Wow. It is horrifying. It is terrible. And that's kind of how the show starts. I was tired and sick one weekend. And I was like, I've watched most of the shows I want to watch. I guess I'll give The Boys a try. And so I had it on, and I kind of watched it, and I kind of tuned out of it, and I kind of watched it. If I had anything else to do that weekend, I don't think I would have made it through. I did end up making it through this, like 10 to 12 episode, however long it was, series on Amazon Prime. But man, it was a rough ride.
Yeah.
I do not recommend it. Like, the quality of the cinematography and the writing was pretty good, but it was just such yucky material that I felt sick to my stomach through most of the episodes. I can't recommend it. I give it like a 5 for quality of construction, but that's it. The most I can give it is 5 stars out of 10.
So, question.
Yeah.
Do you think that you talk about how the first episode is like right in your face, really like gory and violent. Do you think that changes in later episodes and it becomes less so? Or do you think that like it starts the way it means to go on, and it is that way all through?
That's a good question, and it's basically the question that got me through to the second episode, because I was like, maybe they just want to like put all the really controversial stuff in the first episode to get people like riled up, and then it'll settle down and be a little bit calmer throughout the rest. No, it is intense and violent and disturbing every single episode throughout the series.
All right.
Like every time I think, oh, that was the worst thing I've ever seen, something worse happens. Like just terrible stuff happens in the show.
Great. Cool.
This is one of those situations where I watched the show, so you don't necessarily have to.
I feel like you do that a lot more often than I do that, because I'm more likely to just be like 2 episodes in and be like, you know what? No, we're not doing this.
I mean, there are some shows where I'll only make it through an episode or 2, and then I just can't take it anymore.
Yeah.
But for this one, it was one of those weekends where I wasn't leaving my apartment, so I managed to make it through. Any other circumstance, I would have been out with the first.
Right. There's a lot of shows that I've forced myself to finish, but usually it's shows that are like things that have already finished their series run, and I'm finishing them because I want to have the like cultural context. It's like a popular show that I don't really like. Yeah.
Yeah. And to be fair, a lot of comic book geeks apparently liked the show, The Boys. It got enough positive feedback that they are getting a second season. That'll continue. Like I made it to the end of the first season, so I know that there's a cliffhanger, and I can see that some people might want to know what happens after the cliffhanger. I want it out of the world. I am not going to be watching the second season. I have no interest in it. I was damaged enough by the first one. I don't need any more violence done to me from watching the second season. So that's The Boys on Amazon Prime. Please don't watch it, but if you do, you've been warned.
Yep. I feel like that's pretty fair. So big shift.
Let's shift to the UK.
Yes, I went to go see the Downton Abbey movie, which is a movie, and we're talking about it because it's based on a TV show.
Yeah.
And I've already gotten some shit from Paul and others who say that it doesn't count as a movie. Like, I was bragging that I finally went to go see a movie for all the people who are always on me about how I never go to see movies. I only watch TV, and they're like, it's still TV, Rachel. You went to another location to watch TV. and you're not wrong.
I mean,
So-
no, I was just busting your chops, but I do respect that it is actually a movie. Like when I went to see Firefly, or no, Serenity. When I went to see Serenity in the movie theaters, I consider that to be like an actual movie, not just another episode of the Firefly TV series.
Okay.
So
that's actually a good example for one of my points on the Downton Abbey movie.
Okay.
Firefly, like Serenity, the movie, stands alone pretty well, separate from Firefly.
Yeah, but it also acts as a continuation. It's both.
Right. It's both. I don't think that the Downton Abbey movie is a good movie if you are not already completely all in on the TV show.
Oh, I see.
It's long.
Okay.
It's 2 hours. There are a fair number of, like, not only are there characters that who have seen all of the seasons of the show and even wrote a 16-page paper on this in college,
Wow.
don't remember.
Wow.
Like, I forgot that Edith got married, like finally got married at the end of the series.
Spoiler.
Sorry, not sorry.
I mean, how long ago did the series end?
A couple years ago.
All right.
There's just a lot of things that I didn't quite remember, or I didn't remember well enough, because they would be like, oh, this character who you know, and I'm just like, who you? What's happening? Yeah. So that was a thing. I'll also say that, like, it was like, it spent there were times when I'm just like, cool. So, like, I'm invested in the way that this character is reacting to this thing because I know the history behind it and I know why they're having this reaction, and that's why I'm invested in it. But, like, if I didn't have that context, I could tell that they were spending too much time on it. Like, there was a montage toward the end that was way too long. Objectively.
That's unfortunate. I'm glad that you were there to point that out.
Yeah. So that being said, it had all the, like, the pomp and circumstance and the drama and the, like, underground, like, everything's happening and, like, nobody knows what's going on kind of, like, stuff that we know and love from Downton Abbey. There's a royal visit, which is in the trailer. It's literally like the bit that you see in the trailer of the Hugh Bonneville getting the letter and reading that out loud is like 2 minutes into the movie. It is not a spoiler.
Okay.
It's kind of the basis of this whole thing.
Got it.
There's then drama with, like, downstairs drama. There's upstairs drama. There's an assassination attempt. There's a lot going on. And there's so many characters. Hello to Mr.
Japperlingo.
Japperlingo? Okay, great. Who says hi in the comments. Hello. I'm talking about
the Downton Abbey movie.
The Downton Abbey movie, which was wonderful. Like, here's some other things that were in this movie. There was a pregnancy announcement. There was some good old-fashioned fighting over who's going to get the family inheritance, which is a staple.
It's a staple of British drama.
Of British drama in general, and Downton Abbey in particular. There were also plot lines that felt really contrived. All the downstairs characters, like, kind of conspire against the servants that come from the royal court and, like, the royal family. So, like, that's, like, it was effective. Like, they had to have something for them to do, and this worked. But it didn't feel like it felt like a reach.
Sure. I mean,
for the show.
It's got a huge cast. It's got like 50 people who are main cast members on Downton Abbey, right?
And then they add more people,
yeah,
which they have to do for a movie. Like, you have to add in the characters that are going to be the servants of the queen and the king and stuff like that. And you have to add in, like, the spy from Ireland who's, like, anyway. Like, they also so one of the main things that happens in the last episode of the show, which, yes, since we're here, spoiler alert, is that Thomas, who's like consistently kind of a butler character, is promoted to be like kind of the head of the downstairs.
Like the major domo of the
Yeah.
downstairs.
And then Carson, the guy who used to do that, retires.
Oh, Carson.
So they contrive a way to bring Carson back
I think that's in the trailer too.
because they want to have that character, which I agree. Like, I don't know how you would have the show without having Carson in it, but that leaves Thomas to like be off on his own with his own like complete side plot that has nothing to do with anything else in the show, in the movie. And I'm just like, this is a thing that would make a lot of sense if it were still a TV show.
Yeah.
But as a movie, it is not really one story.
Do you think they're trying to set up like a continuation of multiple movies?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think it had a pretty satisfactory ending. I really enjoyed it.
You did like it.
Like, there were a lot of issues with it that I can see from an objective standpoint. But I enjoyed it because I am already invested in all these characters, and I was already sold when I walked in. I went to go see it by myself. I sat next to another woman who was also there by herself, which was kind of great. Yeah. Then I think that is it did feel like a really good send-off.
Okay.
So yeah.
Was it needed? Like at the end of this TV show, did you think, oh, I wish they had something to like button this? No, okay.
Not at all.
So this is just gratuitously getting more Downton Abbey money from the people who want to see Downton Abbey stuff.
Absolutely.
I see. How did it feel seeing it on like a big theater screen versus a tiny little TV screen?
I couldn't yell at the TV. So it felt weird.
That might be a recommendation to wait and watch it on streaming.
Yeah.
If you like yelling at Downton Abbey, maybe watch it on streaming once that's available.
Right. Yeah. All right. So we do have a couple other comments from Mr. Yapperlingo. Never watched the TV show. That's okay. Sometimes you don't watch the TV shows that we talk about, and we talk about them anyway because we've watched them. You're saying bathwater, which I feel like was potentially something that referenced the thing that I was speaking about in that immediate moment, and I don't remember, so sorry. And then says there's a plane crash in New York.
Like in real life? That just happened? I don't know.
I don't know.
We're taping a podcast here, so we're not really paying attention to news at the moment.
But if you're asked, like, if that's a reference to Downton Abbey, then it's actually the Titanic, which was a boat on its way to New York. That's how the show starts.
In the movie?
No, the show.
The show. Oh, okay.
First episode.
Really? The first episode of Downton Abbey was with the Titanic?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah. Now
I know that. All right. Mm-hmm. The last thing that I wanted to talk about is also British. So there's a segue.
Yay!
There's a show that came on Channel 4 in the UK called Year of the Rabbit. And once again, this is one of those annoying things where the show's title is not helpful at all. It's not like about the Chinese zodiac. It's not. It is not that. I wanted to watch the show because I finally saw an advertisement for it that showed the star of the show, Matt Berry, showing up next to the name Year of the Rabbit. For those of you who are familiar with British TV shows, then you might see that that Matt Berry is from The IT Crowd, a very popular, geeky comedy show in the UK. I was a huge fan of it when I first discovered it. I'm less of a fan of it now because I discovered that Graham Linehan, the creator of the show, is a transphobe, and I'm not supporting that. But as far as I know, all the actors from the show, The IT Crowd, are decent people, and Matt Berry really shone as a hilarious character there. Well, he has gotten a lot of popularity recently. He's been in like 3 TV shows that I know over the last year, and it's just like knocked it out of the park each time. This one, Year of the Rabbit, is set in the same time period as Sherlock Holmes.
Oh.
Yeah. So what everybody tends to think of as the Victorian era of Sherlock Holmes solving mysteries with Dr. Watson on the dirty streets of London, it is that era, but it is a very different approach to it.
Is it still British? Like the Year of the Rabbit implies like a Chinese or Asian
thing,
like setting,
right?
I think. But I don't know. You're the one who watched the show, so
yes. It's revealed very early on that the reason for the name of the show is because the character played by Matt Berry is Detective Inspector Rabbit. Like that is his name.
Oh.
He is Detective Inspector Rabbit. And so the sequence of events unfolding on this police solving a mystery series, it's only 6 episodes long, but like this police solving a mystery series has to do with him and how he has affected other characters around him. Hence, Year of the Rabbit. It is a funny show, and I keep on having to remind myself that it's in the same time period as Sherlock Holmes, because they go right up to the edge of being anachronistic. They don't quite talk about things like cell phones and computers. They go right up to like talking about things that are like those concepts. Like, how do we communicate with this other person distantly so quickly? And then they do something that actually makes sense in the time period, but they're like kind of winking at the fact that the writers know in the future there will be cell phones, in the future there will be cars, all that stuff, which is great. I like that kind of like meta humor that is not explicit, but they're definitely implying it in the writing. That's kind of fun. Cool. Yeah. Matt Berry's character is like a very vulgar, dirty, down in the dumps. Like he has a missing eyebrow for the entire series, and everybody who meets him says, "What's up with your eyebrow?" Which, by the way, if you encounter somebody in real life with a disfigurement or disability, don't ask them what's up with that, because that's fucking rude. But in the show, every time someone meets him, they ask him that because it's the 1800s, and his response every time is, "Oh, a dog chewed it off last year." What? It's so weird. It's so ridiculous.
The consistency makes me think that that's actually what happened too.
Yeah. I have no reason to doubt that it happened, but it keeps on coming up so often that it's definitely a running gag. So that's the kind of like rough and tumble guy that he is. And to add some like contrast to the characters in the show, he's teamed up with a very posh gentleman who went to all the right schools in London and speaks with a more upper crust accent than Matt Berry's character, played by Freddie Fox. And so they have that kind of like street urchin versus upper class dynamic going on with them. And then another aspect is they bring in, I want to say her name correctly. Her name is Susan Wokoma, and she is a Black woman fighting to be the first female police officer in 1800s London in the show. And I just first discovered this actress on the short-lived TV show, also from the UK, called Crazy Head. It was kind of like their version of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And so she was great in that. I love seeing that she was like she's playing this Black first female police officer, struggling to get any sort of like respect and credit. But she's totally willing to do everything that any of the other police officers can do. She's willing to get into like the rowdy brawls. She's willing to like use science to figure out stuff. She's doing it all. And she's like the shining star of the show. Even though it's Matt Berry's show, she's the one that stood out for me.
That's nice.
I really enjoyed it. There's a mystery. There's an arc over the 6 episodes of the show. It does get solved. It's a little bit contrived. But it's a lot of humor and there's a lot of fun stuff in there over and over again. But it's I think it's what they consider like a pre-watershed show in the UK, which means that it's early enough in the day that they can't be too raunchy. So they don't cross too many lines.
Okay.
Like they would do if it were like a 10 p.m. show, then they'd cross all the lines. But I think it's earlier in the evening, so it's a little not quite as risque as some British shows are. But yeah, and they did a great job with the production, making it really look like 1800s London.
That's easier to do in England.
I'm sure that it is. My favorite running gag is that every episode there's a street urchin who is selling something on the street that is ridiculous. My favorite was
same street urchin the whole
same street urchin every time, but always a different item.
Okay.
And my favorite one, I think it was the last episode or the next last episode. the urchin, the camera pans past the street urchin, and they have a tray, and on the tray they've got what look like hot dog buns with pieces of wood inside the hot dog buns, and she calls out, Twix in a bun, 2 pence for people to buy and eat the Twix in a bun, apparently. It's ridiculous, but it's fun.
Okay.
Yeah, it's great.
Weird.
Yeah.
Cool.
I gave it 8 out of 10 stars is what I said.
That was on Hulu?
It's not on Hulu. I had to tunnel into the UK and watch it on their whatever the equivalent of iPlayer area is for Channel 4. I watched it there because it's on Channel 4 in the UK. You can watch it there. I'm imagining at some point it'll probably be on a US streaming service, but it is not yet that I could find.
Yeah, Netflix, or maybe it'll be on PBS.
Maybe. That'd be cool. Because again,
PBS
it's not too
does
raunchy.
A lot of stuff like that.
It does. Love PBS for that reason.
For example, Downton Abbey.
Oh yeah, ties it all together very nicely.
Yeah.
I believe we've come to the point in our show where we do an ad break.
I think you're right.
Which ones should we do?
I think you should do your first one.
Okay.
And I only have one.
You should do yours first then.
Okay.
Go for it.
Who are you? Who? That is the question that Gil Grissom and his team of crime scene investigators try to answer every week on CSI, a show that revolutionized the way that 90% of the U.S. population considered criminal trials and scientific evidence. For 15 seasons and dozens of rotating cast members, CSI can fulfill all your crime procedural needs on YouTube TV, Hulu, and CBS All Access.
There was a movie about vampires and werewolves from Taika Waititi called What We Do in the Shadows. It starred Jermaine Clement and was amazingly good and funny. More recently, FX decided to expand that universe and look at a different set of vampires in the United States in a TV show also called What We Do in the Shadows, just to confuse everybody. The show is hilarious, and it plays with the concepts of supernatural characters trying to live their lives in modern America. Not old-timey America or old-timey England, modern America. And they do it with the help of a goofy human servant. What they do in the shadows can be dark and bloody, but what I did in the shadows was laugh my head off at this great show. Available on FX and Hulu.
Cool. I've seen the ads for that.
Did you ever see the movie? You never watch movies.
No.
You liked Thor Ragnarok.
I did.
The same guy who created Thor Ragnarok created the movie and this TV show.
That. Maybe. We'll come back to that. So now we move into our main story section of the show, which is where we dig a little bit deeper into 2 shows, 1 show each. I have some bullet points for my show, and you have a full, proper script. Would you like to start? Would you like me to start?
You can start.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll continue with the
Back
alternating.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about a show that you may have heard of called ER. It's on NBC for like 15 years.
Yeah.
Maybe more. I am currently watching it for the first time, and I have just recently finished season 3.
Wow. Okay.
So that's where I'm at right now. I also talked about ER in a previous episode of this podcast.
Yes, but only season 1.
Only season 1. I had just finished season 1 when we were talking about that. So I'm going to try and not repeat myself too much, because I probably talked a fair bit about how I used to live in Chicago and I used to work at Warner Brothers. So like there was that like layers of things.
Yes, I nod. Yes.
Which was fun for me. So I'm not going to talk about that today, but I will talk about something else that I noticed on this viewing, but like don't think I talked about the last time, which is that there are a lot of characters on the show.
There are definitely a lot of characters on the show. And by the way, it's okay if you repeat yourself. This is a TV talk podcast.
That's true.
And a fundamental component of TV is reruns.
That's true. Yeah. I'm not afraid of repeating myself. enjoy mixing it up.
Sure.
I don't rewatch shows very often. So I try and also not say the same things on the podcast. Anyway.
That's fair. So yes, lots and lots of characters on the ER.
So many characters in this show.
And like every season, if any characters have left, they just add more.
Right. So I watch a lot of procedural shows, and that's like one of the things that I really like about procedural shows is that they like have TV show, like they have lots of characters, and the characters are somewhat interchangeable, but they're also like relevant, and we get to see their lives. Like that is really cool to me, that we get to know the characters for who they are and not just like the stories that, like, for instance, in a hospital, like the medical cases that are coming in.
Right.
We also get to know the like doctors and nurses and their lives. So that's one of the things that I really like about this show. And also I think it's kind of like, this is the first show that really did that.
Yeah.
To the extent that it did.
Yeah. I think weirdly, the medical professionals I've asked about this, they always confirm the internet meme that says that the most accurate medical show on TV ever was Scrubs, weirdly. But after that, ER is always right up there.
Right.
And they were like, and ER was like the groundbreaking one.
Yeah, absolutely. But also just in general, like you think about shows that are older than, like ER is started in 1993, I think.
Yes.
But if you think about shows from like the 80s, if they were medical shows, they were like Doogie Howser. Doogie Howser was more 90s.
Doogie Howser. Well, he was like on the cusp.
Right on the cusp. But like that was about him being a kid doctor.
Yes.
Like a lot of the shows in the 80s and in the 70s, like things like Columbo, stuff that had procedural elements to it, it was really just about the case.
Yeah.
Or just about like whatever was happening in this like work environment. They didn't do both.
Yeah.
And ER does both.
Yeah. Like ER walked so House could run.
Which is a funny thing to say because another thing that I want to talk about is, first of all, how no one is safe, which is another.
Yeah. Anybody can die on ER.
Another thing that I really enjoy and have said about other shows. Like one of the things that I really like about 911, the like show that's currently airing on, well, not currently, but is going to be airing their new season on Fox very soon, is that no one is safe. Like everyone is involved in everything, and like anyone can die at any moment. Like, or people leave without warning.
Yeah.
Like Susan left in the middle of season 3. Like on a random episode, and I'm like trying to puzzle together. I'm just like, was this it wasn't the winter finale? Like it was just, I don't know what's happening here, but it happened, and it was very strange. So one of the characters that is not safe is a character played by Omar Epps.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Epps.
Oh, wow. Epps. Omar Epps.
Yes, Omar Epps. Who is like one of the main characters on House.
Yeah.
Which is another thing that I really enjoy about this show, particularly because it is over and has been for a while, is that I get to see actors and actresses in this show. And whenever I think about it, I'm just like, oh, I know Bradley Whitford from him being on The West Wing,
right,
and soon to be in Perfect Harmony. But like this episode, like these scenes of ER were on his reel when he got the job for The West Wing.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, and then I'm sure that has a lot to do with the fact that with the result that many of the actors from ER have gone on to keep on playing medical professionals in other TV shows and movies, right? Because they've got this great ER reel in their history.
Yeah. So Omar Epps is one. And the other one that I would say is Georgia Fox, who later I know from her being Sarah on CSI.
Oh, okay.
So that's like, it's not quite directly, like she's not a doctor in CSI, but it still has a lot of that like really technical aspect to it. And it's just like, oh, it's good to see you. Like, baby Ming Na Wen, here you are.
Yeah. One of the few actors who I don't know went on to do any other medical things after ER, but got their hit start on ER was George Clooney.
Yeah.
Like from the like George Clooney and his sister Rosemary Clooney were in the very first episode of ER. They were there from the beginning for many years, and then after George Clooney leaves, I don't think he ever did another medical thing in his life, in his career.
So Rosemary Clooney is not his sister. It's actually his aunt.
Oh, his aunt. Okay, sorry. Sorry.
His mother's sister.
Sorry.
No, yeah,
got it.
I think that's right. Anyway, and I think that that's kind of one of the reasons he got the job.
Possibly.
Is because they're like, hey, would your aunt come on and be a recurring character?
I mean, prior to that, his big real hit was Facts of Life. He was the guy on Facts of Life. How do you hire a doctor from that? You don't. You get Rosemary Clooney's nephew to do it.
Right. Yeah. So a couple like little highlight reel of where we're at plot wise, because this is a show that I'm sure I will continue to talk about.
Yeah. And it's been so many years since I watched ER. I have no idea where you are.
Right. Highlight reel of what's happening right now in ER. Carol accidentally gave someone the wrong blood type, and then that person died. Oof. And then there was a nurses' strike, and they were using that death against all the nurses, even though she was the only one who was responsible for that.
That's Juliana Margulies' character.
Yes, Juliana Margulies' character. So that was a whole thing. Dr. Benson, who is the surgeon, like not lead, but like one of the surgeons.
He's like the hotshot surgeon.
Yeah. His girlfriend has his baby, and she didn't tell him about it until they were like really far into this pregnancy, and then the baby is born premature. Jeannie, who is a physician's assistant, who is HIV positive, because she contracted HIV through her husband, who cheated on her, is reconciling with her now ex-husband. Yeesh. So that's a whole thing. Nice. And was like in a relationship with another doctor for a hot minute there, and then is kind of like just going back to her ex-husband, and like that never happened, and that's a whole thing. So that's fun. There's Dr. Carter is realizing that he wants to be in the ER and he doesn't want to be doing surgery. So that's like,
I mean, sure, early on in his career, but later on he decides to be a librarian.
Hey, we're going to come back to that in a second. And then the other, I guess, two things that I'll mention. One is that Dr. Green.
Oh yeah, what happened to him?
So his daughter comes to live with him for a little while, and he's like really having trouble balancing that. He's like trying to get tenure, but isn't able to do the hours because he has his daughter who's like 8 or 9 living with him.
Okay.
And then there is a whole thing with this guy who comes in and was like, it was a black guy who got caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. Yes. But they like somewhere along the line assumed that he was a drug dealer. And then like his brother is upset with the way that things are being handled, which fair. And it's a whole big thing. And then
is that the storyline where the brother accuses Dr. Green of being horribly racist, and that's why he didn't treat the his brother who was hurt?
Yes, that one.
Yeah.
And then Dr. Green thinks that they are connected because he is then later attacked
in the bathroom. I remember that episode. That was so scary.
It was terrifying.
That kept me afraid of men's bathrooms literally my entire life.
Yeah. So that happened. And then, so Dr. Green thinks that they're connected, but the police officer is saying that everything checks out. There's like no evidence that these things are connected. It was just a random act of violence. And that just like kind of sends him over the deep end. And then was there one other thing that I was going to say? Oh yes. One other storyline that I was going to say is, about Omar Epps' character, who is a surgical resident, and like mid-season commits suicide. Like trigger warning for that. Sorry. Should have said that before. And then is brought into the hospital to be like treated in the ER. And they like realize that it is him because his pager is going off in his pocket and they're paging him to come.
Shit.
So that was a big, that was.
They don't save him, right?
No, no, he dies.
Yeah. The weird thing about that, I mean, I remember being shook by that episode because I resonated with the professionals, the doctors who are trying to save somebody that they discover is, if not an actual friend, but certainly a friendly acquaintance of theirs.
Right.
And like having to struggle with, they know him. It's funny that you said ER started around 1993 because that's when I went into college. And so I went to college at Johns Hopkins University. Oh. Surprise, surprise. Many of my fellow college friends were pre-med. So we would, on Thursday nights, get together and watch ER together, all of us. I wasn't pre-med, but they were. So I watched ER for the first 3 or 4 years of its run because...
Well, which brings us back to, this is a show that pulls no punches.
I had actually forgotten that Omar Epps played that character.
Yeah.
And that's weird because, as we pointed out, he was in House later, and in House, there's a character who commits suicide, and out of nowhere, apparently, and they deal with that in House too.
Huh. I don't remember it in House.
Oh?
Was it in a later season?
It was like either the last season or the next to last season.
Okay.
And it was the one played by Harold. The guy plays Kumar.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember his name.
I don't think I was watching that season. I kind of stopped watching House.
I mean, in House is like the writers had to do something because that actor literally went to work for Obama. He was like, "Oh, I just got a job offer to work for Obama, so I'm going to leave this acting job I have on House and do that instead." Yeah. So they had to write him out of the story, and the way they decided to do it was to have a very like intense, realistic, kind of like understanding and sympathetic about how damaging it can be episode about suicide. It was legit. And everybody who didn't know what was going on in the actor's personal life was like, "Oh, he's going to come back. This is just like a trick. They're dreaming something." Right. But no, he was gone for the entire rest of the show because he died from suicide.
Oh, that's like another thing that really resonated with me and with Carol's story, because that is a part of her story as well. In the first episode of the show, she's brought into the ER because she was trying to commit suicide, and they save her, obviously, because she's in the rest of the show.
Yes.
But yeah, that's like, I've seen that as a bit of a reoccurring thread through her story, and it's like, oof, yeah.
I had a lot of respect for
good
ER.
TV right there.
It is good TV. So you're still enjoying it by the end of season 3?
I am. I'm still really enjoying it. I feel like this is. I mentioned earlier that there are some shows that I feel like I will get to a point where I watch them out of duty to like, I must finish this. I've committed to it. And ER feels like it may eventually become one of those shows because it is just so long.
It's so long.
But it also, like, right now it's not. Like, right now I'm really enjoying it.
How are you feeling about the fact that like everything's anachronistic to you at this point? Like everything is decades old to you at this point, technology-wise, culture-wise. Does that make a difference in the storytelling?
It doesn't make a huge difference in the storytelling, I don't think. There haven't been any times when I'm just like, oh, that wouldn't happen now because of this technology thing. Like, they do a lot of storytelling that's really based on like character and like maybe the medical stuff. There is some of that, like, oh, that would never happen now, but I don't know enough about medicine to notice that.
Right.
So that doesn't really affect me. The other thing I would say, the only thing that really affects me in watching a show that is decades old is that this is my first time watching it, and I don't know what happens to any of these characters, but it's so old.
Brace yourself is realizing that because the show went on for so long, everybody went through all kinds of imaginable shit. Like
Right.
if you can imagine something terrible happening to a person who's trying to have a professional life, it happens to people on ER.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm coming to realize. And I'm not mad. I don't mind spoilers. I'm
Right.
not like mad that I was spoiled
Yeah.
for something, especially because I know it's a decades old show and people aren't spoiler warning this stuff anymore. So I'm fine with it. I'm still invested in the show because just because I know something's going to happen, it doesn't mean I know how it's going to happen or how the story is going to affect the other characters that are around it. So.
Right. Well, I mean, the last time you talked about season 1 was when I almost asked you about Dr. Green's being attacked in the bathroom because that was like the most traumatic thing that I could remember from the beginning of the series that I watched. But I didn't because you were like, "Oh, I haven't watched a lot of stuff of it. Don't tell me what happens." So I did keep my spoilers to myself on that occasion. But you're also going to be, because I only watched it with my pre-med friends at college. I think by the end of like year 4, I probably stopped watching because most of my friends went off to medical school at that point. So I was like, I don't want to watch it by myself anymore. It's not the same. Yeah. Anyway, so I think by the end of year 4 might be when I'm out of I lose all context for it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. But I'll still be curious to hear how you feel about it throughout all the numerous seasons throughout the decade of ER.
And this actually I happened upon an Instagram post from another friend of mine who I knew in Chicago, and she is starting a podcast where they're doing the like Gilmore Guys West Wing Weekly thing.
Okay.
Where they're watching one episode, doing a podcast, one episode, podcast, like a podcast for each episode
of ER.
So I am.
And they're starting from the beginning right now?
Starting from the beginning. Yeah, they're starting recording it. I don't know yet when it's going to be available or anything like that, but if I'll reach out to her and I'll be like, hey, I also do a podcast. It's about TV. I just talked about ER. Do you like, I would love to link to yours.
Yeah. And maybe you can like guest on their show now that you've watched the first 3 seasons.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah. They can come back and join you at some point here on this show when we talk about ER again.
That would be fun.
Although you're always going to be watching it faster than them.
Probably, yeah.
There's no way they could. You're watching one episode per podcast episode. Yeah, they're not gonna catch up.
No, but I can come back for like, I can remind myself what happened in the end of a season or something, and we can talk about that.
All right.
And also, they've seen it before.
Oh, they have. So this is not their first watch.
Well, I think it's like she's doing it with another friend of hers, and I'm pretty sure that she has seen it before because she seems to have the DVDs. But I don't know. Like, I don't know if both of them have seen it.
I see.
So.
All right. Well, yeah, they could definitely guess here. They could definitely guess here. Anyway, so you just talked about a show that's from the 90s. I'm going to go back and talk about something from the 80s for a minute because my main thing is Dark Crystal: Age of Resistance. Now, that's a modern TV show on Netflix, just released like a week or two ago as of date of recording of this. But it is a continuation of a movie, and the movie, The Dark Crystal, came out in the 80s, literally the 1980s. I think if you were like growing up and you were a movie watcher, you were a kid, you liked Jim Henson things in the 80s, you were in one of two camps. You were either in the Dark Crystal camp or the Labyrinth camp. I was more of like a Muppet movie, Muppet show kid myself. I like the comedy stuff more than anything else. But of the two shows, there were big Henson movies in the 80s. I was more of a Labyrinth kid than a Dark Crystal kid. I thought Dark Crystal was just a little too weird and slow and creepy. A little weird, slow, and creepy for me as a kid. Yeah. I haven't seen it. I haven't watched it again recently, despite the fact that I knew I was going to watch this show on Netflix. And that's kind of okay because the show on Netflix is supposed to be a prequel to the movie, not a sequel, a prequel to the movie. So now that I finished watching the TV series, I'm actually gonna watch the movie at some point and see how it feels as a continuation from the sequel. I don't know if they're gonna have another season of Age of Resistance, which would have to be between the first season and the movie still in order for it to make any sense. I don't know. Anyway, the whole point of this show, in case you have no idea about the Dark Crystal, is that there is this planet out there somewhere called Thra. Thra is the name of the planet. And on this planet are a lot of weird mystical creatures, like long-legged things that look kind of like bugs, but they're also hairy and they act like horses. There's like tiny little fuzzballs that are like tribbles. There are humanoid creatures on this planet. The taller ones that are still shorter than humans, but the taller ones are called gelflings, and they have like lots of civilization and technology and stuff. And then the shorter ones that are more rounded are called podlings. They're kind of like the dwarves of this era, but they're like cute. Maybe they're more like hobbits. They're cute podling creatures, also humanoid. They also have language. It's a different language than the gelflings. Anyway, that's all the people that are on this planet. Plus the planet itself is kind of like a magical, mystical place. And so the planet has its own avatar. Like a being is coalesced to speak for the planet.
Gotcha.
And that being, like the Mother Earth, the Gaia of the planet, is called Mother Aughra. So she is like an actual humanoid character wandering around. She looks like an old bag lady or a witch or something, and she coexists with everybody else on this planet. That is the setting of the Dark Crystal. Before the crystal became dark, before that happened, it was called the Crystal of Life. And it was not dark, it was white and bright and shone in the night and stuff. And that was all part of this ecosystem of the planet. And then apparently, thousands of years ago, aliens came to this fantastical planet, and the aliens like kind of took over, and they became dictators of this relatively peaceful planet. And these aliens kind of look like bird monsters, and they're called Skrexes. And the Skrexes, I'm not exactly sure how they've got power over everybody, because they don't seem to have like magic powers or anything. They just seem to be mean and scary. But for whatever reason, they have a dictatorship and they rule over peaceful people. And honestly, I don't understand their system of government, but I barely understand the United States system of government either. So who am I to say?
Right.
So thousands of years ago, the Skrexes come, they take over, they become dictators, they rule harshly over the gelflings and the podlings. And then finally we get to the beginning of this TV series, The Dark Crystal Age of Resistance. After 1,000 years of this dictatorship, where the gelflings and the podlings are treated like crap, but they kind of like just like go with it. Finally, one of the gelflings is murdered by one of the Skrexes, while the gelfling's boyfriend watches it happen, and he's like, "F no, I'm gonna fight you now," and hence they start to resist. He gets together all the gelflings to resist them, and the start of the TV show is when the Skrexes first discover their most hideous, despicable thing that they do, which is that they will take perfectly innocent gelflings. It doesn't matter if they're innocent or not, but they take gelflings and they drain their life essence out of the gelfling, killing the gelfling to cause like this like milky liquid, and then they drink the liquid to stay young. It is like the most disturbing abduction fairy tale that I have seen in quite a long time. It is dark.
So yeah, there's a lot going on here.
There's a lot going on here. So that's the beginning of the show. The beginning of the show is an innocent gelfling is killed by a Skrexes. The Skrexes drains the gelfling's life essence. It becomes like a fountain of youth drink that the Skrexes all drink down in order to become younger and stronger. And the gelflings who discover that this is happening are like, "Stop doing that! Don't kill us and take our life energy."
Yeah.
And the entire rest of the series, which is another one of these series that's like 14 episodes long or whatever, is about various clans of the gelflings coming together and deciding to fight against the established dictatorship of this council of Skrexes characters. If it sounds dark, it's because it is dark.
It is. Sounds like it, yeah.
This movie was marketed, The Dark Crystal was marketed to kids in the 80s as a kid's show. But even the movie was somewhat dark. It had similar components. And I don't know how they were trying to market the TV show.
Right. So just to real quick, we have Mac G in the comments is asking what the name of this TV show is.
The name of the TV show, it is Dark Crystal, Age of Resistance on Netflix.
Yeah.
And it is I'm not a parent, so I'm not necessarily qualified to say what makes it for a kid's show. But if you want a show to watch with your kids where you have to talk about some really disturbing stuff afterwards, then sure.
I mean, I do think part of kids television is to like not disturbing, but like to bring up important things and talk about them in a way that makes sense to kids. And then like as a parent, you should also have the follow-up conversation.
Yeah.
But this sounds really dark.
I mean, the weird thing is, if the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance TV show had released like 4 or 5 years ago, or maybe in the future, I don't know if it would hit as hard as it does right now. But weirdly, there are some analogies to the U.S. government right now in the way that the story about the Gelflings and the Skeksis unfolds, because the Gelfling are gathered up and kept in little camps, cages, even though they've done nothing wrong. And then they are abused for the people in power.
Yeah.
There are some things you can talk about with current events being parallel to some of the stuff.
I've got a theory
Yeah.
that is, I would say this is true with sci-fi and fantasy and like historical fiction, that the like deeper meaning messages in TV shows and movie, like any story that is one of these three themes, is more indicative of the time that it was made than it is of the like the whatever setting that they are pretending to be in.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that makes sense.
In fact, I wrote a paper about that in college.
About Downton Abbey?
And Downton Abbey was my case study.
We're wrapping things around. It's nice.
Talked about earlier.
And it's funny because Downton Abbey started off as a TV show and you went to see the movie. I'm watching Dark Crystal, which was a movie, and it was turned into a TV show.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Yeah, it's good. Some nice parallels here.
Right here.
A couple of bullet points that I made about that I want to talk to you about the Dark Crystal TV show.
Okay.
In case you cannot tell, I did like the show. Like I talk some shit about shows, and I think, it's so terrible. I don't like it. I really, really enjoyed Age of Resistance.
Very much like me talking about the Downton Abbey.
There is. We got some parallels there too. I enjoyed it a lot. Here are some reasons why I liked it. I really like the mystical characters. Here's the lead that I'm burying. This is a Jim Henson Muppet Productions show. Like all of the show was created by the Jim Henson Company. And so
I don't think that was buried. I think you said Jim Henson earlier, and I just assumed that it was still his thing.
Good. But I cannot emphasize enough how much they really ran with the control that they had of the show. Their sets are huge. Like I watched a little bit of the behind the scenes stuff. Their sets are enormous. Even though the puppets are like this big, the sets are huge. That's cool. Very detailed, beautifully constructed. All of the puppets are beautiful, and the articulation of them, the way they move, the way they talk, the way they interact is amazing. The creatures themselves include, like I mentioned before, like the really long-legged bug type thing that's actually like a horse. It's called I think it's called like a long strider, and it's very pretty. The female Gelflings all have wings and they can fly around, but the male Gelflings do not have wings. What else? How
do they make them fly if they're puppets? Are they puppets? I'm assuming they're puppets.
They are puppets. They use some really good wire work.
Cool.
Yeah, it is amazing how well they do it, honestly. There might be some CG, but everything that I saw in the behind the scenes stuff was all practical effects. I don't know how they did it. It was amazing. Cool. Warning for those people who have arachnophobia, there are giant spiders. Not exactly spiders, but they're giant spider-like characters in the show. And at first, they are seen as just scary and dangerous. But I will say that there is a redemption arc for the spider characters, too. And that's one of the things I loved about this series, is that there's a redemption arc for a lot of the characters and character types. There's maybe like 2 that don't have them and don't really deserve them. But for the most part, everybody gets a redemption arc except for the bad guys.
That's cool.
Maybe my favorite character. I had 2 favorite characters. One of them was the podling. There's a podling. It's very small. It would like only come up to our knees in human life, and it's very round faced, so it looks cute, like a Cabbage Patch doll that's come to life and running around and talking. And this one podling has decided that, unlike all the other podlings who are servants, this one wants to be a knight. And so he goes around trying to save people's lives with a spoon that he calls his sword. It is freaking adorable. It is amazing. His name is Hup, and he's easily one of my favorite characters. I would watch the show again just to see him do his stuff because he's great.
I love it.
It's so good.
That's so cute.
And then another one of my favorite characters is that one of the clans of the Gelflings is an entirely underground clan. So they all have like huge eyes so they can see in the dark, and they've got like paler skin, and they don't understand the way the above surface world works. Like everything above the surface is weird and new to them. They're used to being around these underground tunnels, and they're very attuned with nature because of this. So one of those characters joins the main fellowship of the series, and her name is Deet. And she is so freaking adorable and sweet. She has like the most positive attitude about everything.
Aww.
She is great. And her arc is that she goes from being like the sweet, soft, know-nothing person who just like believes in the best in everything to being like the most badass magical character. It is amazing. It is amazing.
Love it.
That is a spoiler, but it is worth it because seeing her go through that journey is just so great. It's fantastic.
I mean, I feel like if you're listening to this podcast, you know that you're going to be spoiled for whatever we're talking about. And if you were worried about that, listen to it later so that you can look in the show notes and see and skip things if you need to.
Yes. Another thing that I was not expecting in this series is that there's a small part. There are two small parts that are played by Andy Samberg and Bill Hader of like Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Saturday Night Live fame. They work together as two characters to tell the history of the planet, and they are hilarious. Like you'd think that if you feel very out of the show, you feel like very jarring to have Andy Samberg acting like Andy Samberg and Bill Hader acting like Bill Hader as two of these puppet characters in the Dark Crystal series. But in fact, they are delightful. They are very fun, and the way that they act makes perfect sense in the story.
Right. I'm not surprised.
I kind of hope that if there is a continuation to Age of Resistance, I hope we see more of them because we only saw them in like 2 episodes.
Yeah.
But they were great. I enjoyed them a lot. They made me laugh, particularly because the reason they were brought in to the show is they told the history of the planet, but they told the history of the planet to the main fellowship of characters using puppets. So these are Jim Henson's puppets using puppets to tell a story to other puppets. And as they come out onto the stage, they say, we're going to do the most incredible form of storytelling you've ever heard using puppets. And then the entire fellowship goes, oh no, not puppets. It's hilarious.
Very meta.
It's so great. It's so great. I love the show. I will say that one of the few things about the show that's not quite satisfying is that it cannot end with a complete triumph because it has to end before the movie starts. Mm-hmm. And the point of the movie is that years and years after the events of this prequel, they're still fighting to get control of the Dark Crystal back from the Skeksis. And so all the stuff that happens in this series is laying the groundwork for that very devastating, difficult journey for the characters ahead of them. So it can't be a complete success, but there is a small triumph, which is nice. It's a little bit consoling at the end of the series. But if you're familiar with the fact that there is going to be a movie that has the rest of the events happening later on, then it's not quite as happy of an ending as you would want.
Right.
But they do end the series by finally creating, like just displaying to you a character that ends up being a significant part of the movie that had not shown up at all in the series before. So the final scene of the series is the introduction of this character that you know later on, if you've seen the movie, will be in the movie. So that was neat. I really liked everything about it. Like everything about the show was pretty great. They tied it all together well. And I don't like prequels. I hate prequels usually, but this time I liked it enough to give it a 9 out of 10.
Oh, yeah. You're rating things again. You always do that.
I always do that.
Yeah, it's not.
I always rate the things.
It's a surprise to me every time. I don't know why.
Well, that's good. I'm glad that you're not like. I kind of like the fact that even though we do prep our notes before the show, we don't usually have a lot of time to read each other's notes.
Right.
So it's
That's
always
true.
fun to like find out from each other as we're going live what's happening here. I'm going to say hello to Aditya Anand. Hello, Aditya Anand.
Hello. We're doing really well. Aditya asks how we are doing today. We're doing really well. We're just about coming towards the end of our podcast. Did you have anything else you wanted to say about the Dark Crystal TV series before we finished, though?
I mean, I think I mentioned that it's on Netflix. The whole series is available. Let's see here. Is there anything else that I wanted to say? I'm just checking my notes. I think I covered it. Oh, I will say a little bit of content warning. Even though these are not human characters, they are shaped like humanoid characters.
Right.
And there are a couple of scenes where there's like some body horror stuff happens. And by that I mean like there's some like body parts severed, removed from bodies. There's definitely some gory deaths that happen. But otherwise, it's a relatively easy show to watch. Just the topics are intense, but the actual watching of the show is pretty fun for the most part. It's pretty fun for the most part.
Yeah.
And this is the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance, the entire series available on Netflix.
Yeah. So Aditya is asking what we are talking about. We just talk about TV shows that we really love. And in this next segment, we're going to answer a question from a listener. It has already been pre-decided which one we're going to answer because we need to know what we're going to say first.
Yes, our studio audience section.
If you have questions, feel free to leave them in the comments or in the chat, and we will potentially answer them in a future episode.
Hooray!
So this question comes from @ChrisPorterHoward on Instagram. And he asks, what is one show both of you can agree is incredibly underrated?
Underrated. So the way I interpreted that was to say it's a show that maybe not a lot of people know about. And if they do know about it, maybe they don't hype it up very much.
Right.
So if it's a very popular show, wouldn't qualify. If it's a very well-known show and very well-loved show, wouldn't qualify. It has to be good despite most people not knowing about it.
Right. And also something that we both watch. And
Yes.
I think that's been kind of the crux of figuring out how to answer this question.
Yeah. Because I watch a lot. I will experiment with lots of TV shows. I'll watch like one-season shows. I'll watch British shows. I'll watch Australian shows and South American shows. I will just like go off the reservation and watch all sorts of stuff.
I mean, I watch a lot of TV, but I watch a lot of mainstream TV, to be quite honest with you.
Oh, yeah. Which is great because I usually don't watch like mainstream drama. I
don't. So we landed on 2, and funnily enough, they share main actor.
They do? Oh my God, they do! I didn't even realize that.
Oh, you didn't realize that? I knew that as soon as I saw the list. And also, I'm going to say the second one first, which is Superior Donuts.
Yes.
Which is a sitcom from a few years ago. It ended. They had 2 seasons or 3 seasons?
2 seasons.
2 seasons.
Yep.
It is only available on CBS All Access now.
And we went to see it. We were in the live studio audience for at least one of those episodes.
Yes. I think I went to 2, but I don't know if we went to both of those together.
I think you went to the other one with a different friend of yours.
Yeah. So that's a fun show. Also, I do have CBS All Access, and I don't know that I would say that it is entirely worth it, but it is the only way to watch the shows that are CBS All Access originals. So if you are interested in those shows, it probably maybe is worth it.
I mean, combine Star Trek Discovery and Superior Donuts, that sells it right there.
And not even mentioning the Twilight Zone, which I still have to go back and watch the rest of so that I can talk about on here. And then the other one, I'll let you say the other one.
The other one is Forever, which was a starring vehicle for Ian Griffith. And that was like an amazing, like kind of sci-fi drama show about a guy who keeps dying and coming back to life forever. Hence the title of the show, which is great. And who's the common actor in both the shows?
I don't remember his name.
His name is Judd Hirsch.
There we go.
And he is great.
As soon as you said it, I knew it.
Yeah, I forgot that he was in both of those shows. It's so funny.
And it's like a main character.
Yeah, main character in both the shows. That's hilarious. Oh my gosh. Why? Okay, apparently there's a Judd Hirsch curse, I guess, because he ends up being in really good shows that are underrated.
Forever was only, so I will say Forever is only 1 season.
Only 1 season.
Superior Donuts was 2 seasons, but Superior Donuts was based on a play.
Oh, okay.
And I really enjoyed it, and I could see them continuing to like run with the like premise of the show, but also like just from the like source material of the play, there was not much more specifically that they could do with it. It did have like this kind of like Cheers, everybody in a bar kind of like vibe to it, and they could have kept doing it.
Absolutely.
But I understand, I guess. I'm sad though.
I don't buy that, because what came after Superior Donuts is like Abby's, about a bar where people go to hang out.
That's
I mean,
true.
all that's going to keep on happening is that they're going to keep on canceling shows and then making new shows that are the exact same structure. A bar full of people who are hanging out. Just keep the good show. Just keep the good show. That's good.
Okay, but Abby's is also good. So keep both.
Okay,
no those toes.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah. Forever is available. You can watch the whole season on the CW Seed for free. So there's that.
Now that we're saying this, I don't know that I ever watched the last episode.
If you wanted to do it, you can see it on the CW Seed for free.
Yep. All right.
So thank you to Chris Porter Howard from Instagram for asking us that question.
Yeah. And now the question is our standard ending question. What are we going to do now? Tonight I am going to go home and probably watch either some ER or the Emmys, and sleep. I have the day off tomorrow, which I'm a little excited about. I'm going to go to a gym that I don't usually go to, because this weekend there is a climbing competition. I go to a climbing gym. There's a climbing competition at the gym that I usually go to, which means that a lot of the walls are being shut down and like gone to blank.
Sure.
In this couple days before the competition.
Are you going to compete?
Yeah, I'll go to it. It's really casual competition. It's not like you don't have to pay to enter. It's like free, no prizes really or anything like that. But it's just fun. It's just fun. That's and cool. There's food and beer and it's chill.
Nice. Climbing and beer. I assume that you climb first?
Yeah, probably. No, yeah. You're supposed to.
Got it.
I'll put it that way. You're supposed to climb first. And they like stamp your hand when you get a beer, and you're not supposed to climb after you do that. But like,
that's good. That's some safety right there. I like that. What I'm going to do after this, I actually tried to see if there's anything I wanted to do to get out of the house today after this. There's like a couple of vegan places that are new that I've been wanting to try out, but they're all going to be closed by the time I get there, because it's like 8:45 p.m. at this point in our recording.
Wow, yeah.
So I'm not going to do that. I think I'm literally just going to stay home, do a little bit more cleaning, and get started to work on actually uploading this podcast video streamed here to our audio podcast service, Podiant. I'm going to see if I can get that tackled today instead of waiting for 2 weeks to do it.
We are so on it. And by we, I mean you. And thank you for that.
It is my pleasure. I'm happy to do it.
Yeah. So is that it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's the show. That's the show is hosted by Paul Roth and Rachel Pierce. And our theme song is by Mary Kate Jimenez Wall. Our Patreon can be found at patreon.com/that'stheshowpod. And if you're listening to this on a audio podcasting service, I encourage you to please go to our YouTube channel, which is hard to find, but you can search for That's the Show and find it that way. And if you subscribe and we get enough subscribers, we can get an actual YouTube URL instead of the mess of complicated characters that they've given us so far. So please subscribe.
Subscribe. Thank you.
Bye.